Welcome to the buyer seminar with Crawford, Lorenzo home selling team. I'm actually here with Michael Brand, our broker here at Keller Williams Metropolitan, and I felt like this was a really important topic to discuss, Michael. Last month, I think the verdict came down with the NAR lawsuit, and you have really been having your thumb on the pulse of this entire thing. You are our broker. You are the former regional director of the tri-state area for Keller Williams. You're also the broker for Keller Williams Town Square, our sister office. But you are so entrenched in this industry, I had to come to you to this. So what happened with this NAR lawsuit? Briefly describe what happened with this.
So with the lawsuit itself, let's go back. There was a class action lawsuit that started back in 2019 with people coming together and saying the sellers were overpaying, in essence, because as an industry, we conspired to price fix. Because historically in America since early 1900s, the seller pays the commission that will cover the agent and then the sub-agent, or most recently the buyer agent. Okay. My buyer's agency is only recent since the 90s. Before 1992, 91, everybody in America was a sub-agent of the seller, but people didn't know that.
Okay.
So the realtor organization kind of pioneered the concept of buyer agency. That way we were sure we were educating the consumer on who was working for them. So we created buyer agency back in the 90s. Let me kind of give you for instance, back before 1991, 92, you meet with the realtor, and you'd say to your realtor, hey, I'll offer up to, offer $400 for this house, I'll go to $425. At that time, no one knew that all realtors were sub-agents of the seller. So that realtor was obligated to go to the seller and say, hey, the offer is $400, but don't accept it because they told me they would go to $425.
Oh, okay. So
that's where buyer's agency came from. That's where the consumer information statement came from.
Okay.
Back in the 90s, the NAR kind of helped pioneer the enactment of both of those things so we can make sure the consumer was educated.
Okay. So, and that really explains what the CIS, we call it the CIS for short. That explains basically what agency is to your buyer, whether you're doing a dual agency, you're working both sides, the buyer agent,
the sales agency,
or the transaction agent. Yeah. So
what had happened was, we've been operating that way since the early 90s, which has really been helpful. But again, in most practices, in most markets, the seller pays the commission and then pays it to the listing broker, and then the listing broker offers out a portion of the commission to the buyer's agent or transaction broker or sub-agent, which is very rarely used. Again, been consistent. In the realtor rules, and that's where the whole thing came from, this whole lawsuit came from. And then the realtor rules and the MLSs, it said in order to put into the MLS, the listing broker must offer out cooperating compensation versus may.
Okay.
If it was may and not must, there would really not be much of a basis of a lawsuit.
Okay.
But because it was must, and the NAR will tell you, yeah, it must, but it could be as little as a penny or a dollar. In order to put it out there, there was the crux of this, commissions have always been negotiable.
Yeah, of course.
I got my license in 1995.
Okay.
I started practicing full-time in 1999. And when someone would call me and say, what's your commission? My answer would always be negotiable. Let's sit down, help me understand the services you're looking for, and we'll create a commission plan that is comparable with the services I give you. So what this lawsuit has done, so what happened with the lawsuit is this class action came together. They sued the NAR, KW, Anywhere, Remax, Berkshire Hathaway, they pretty much sued everybody. And they came down with the verdict on behalf of the plaintiff that said realtors did conspire to fix real estate commissions because as a practice, they're claiming all the realtors told the seller offer out the commission to the buyer's broker or the cooperating broker.
Okay.
Now, it's important to know that that's a regional in the geographic thing. I've got offices in Long Island. The seller pays the selling agent. They don't pay the buyer's broker. In areas of Virginia and Maryland, the seller doesn't offer out compensation to the buying broker. So across Keller Williams, it varies based on geographic areas.
Based on state.
So all the lawsuit has said is it's reinforced commissions are negotiable, which we've always known. But really what it's done is it's forced realtors to do something they should have always been doing.
And then what was that?
I've been using the buyer's agency agreement since my very first year in the business. My parents moved here to New Jersey in 1986. They were they were subject to that sub-agency when they didn't realize the confidentiality was in there. So when I got into business, I embraced buyer's agency. I embraced tenant's agency. So I've been using a buyer's agency document since I started and through all these years. So what the lawsuit has done, and so what NAR did was NAR settled.
Okay.
Keller Williams settled. None of these things are done yet. We're still waiting on approval from the DOJ. But all this has done is it's now made buyer's agency agreements mandatory.
Okay.
I
And
love
as
that.
January 1st, Keller Williams Metropolitan has required all of our agents that you have to have that buyer's agreement.
You know, and I've always taught you need to have a buyer's agency agreement. When you submit a contract on behalf of the buyer to the seller, in the contract it says, I represent the buyer, I don't represent the seller, blah, 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 blah. The CIS says I represent the buyer, but nowhere do you have the express written permission of the buyer. I've always said the buyer's agency agreement is what gives you the express written permission and the legal right to represent them.
Okay.
So I've always taught that we should be doing it, but now, yes, effective January 1st, I made it mandatory. No files compliance or gets paid out unless a buyer's agency agreement or an informed consent of dual agency should be representing both sides is included in the file.
Which I think you kind of explained it, but brings me to my next question of what is a buyer's agency agreement and just how important, and again, you just covered it, but how really important is that?
It's so important. And the New Jersey Realtors, the New Jersey Association of Realtors, just launched yesterday, and they had a great call today. You know, Jared Grasso, Barry Goodman, our attorney, had a great call today for about an hour and change, educating realtors on the very new one that just came out yesterday. So New Jersey Realtors just came out with a 5.5-page exclusive buyer agency agreement.
Okay.
Historically, it was 1.5 pages, but they really did a great job on making this buyer agency agreement really an education piece.
Okay.
For a realtor that walks the buyer through it, they really understand the relationship. They understand the services they'll get from the buyer's broker. They understand confidentiality. They understand fair housing. They did an amazing job of creating a document that, to me, really educates the buyer in a way we've never educated the buyer. Many realtors, not me or us, but many realtors have used terms like the service is free to the buyer because the seller is paying for it. Well, that's not the case. The buyer always paid the commission through the sales price they were paying to the seller. If you look at the funds, the buyer is the one that brings the funds to closing, and it's the buyer's funds that pay everybody at closing.
Okay.
So I'm happy as can be that they've created this because I think it's a better tool of education, and that's what all this is about. This whole lawsuit, this whole settlement, everything being paid is to hold realtors to a higher standard to make sure we're educating our buyers on exactly what the representation is, who's paying for what, and making sure that everyone gets what the pays what they're due to pay. It's actually interesting. There was a great interview with the law correspondent for the Wall Street Journal a few months ago, and what this person said was, and I'm not judging or saying that it's correct, but what the person said is, why should a brand new realtor in the world in the past where we told sellers offer out X% to buyers brokers? Why should an agent that's been in the business one day get paid the same as an agent that's been in the business 25 years?
Okay.
The experience that buyer's going to have in the process, the representation they're going to get in the process is going to be very, very different, and even more different based on the training and the supervision and support of the brokerage you're a part of.
Course.
We've seen some brand new agents that didn't know how to write a contract, and we've had our agents holding their hand, even though they're from a different company, to help guide them in what they're doing. So the buyer having the ability to negotiate with their agent based on the agent's knowledge, skills, representation, ability to negotiate, I think is a great change for the industry.
Okay, and that's one of the great things here about Keller Williams as a company as a whole is the education. The training here at Keller Williams is phenomenal. So newer agents, when you come in, speaking from experience, you get so much training. It's absolutely phenomenal.
I talked to some agents with some of our competitors, and we'll just have a general conversation on what's going on in the world, what's going on in the industry, and I hear from a lot of people, we're on an island, or it's silent. We have no idea what's going on. We don't understand what's going on. I think today probably marks between October and today. I think this is my 35th or 36th training on buyer's agency, the lawsuit, what's happening, how to communicate, how to educate the consumer, the buyer, and the seller. So at times where some people might not be getting any guidance, we're getting close to 50 classes where we're talking about this and how to. We've just created a custom buyer consultation.
Okay.
That our agents can just take on the fly, go sit down with a buyer, and it's about a half-hour conversation where we sit down and we take them through what buyer's representation is, what disclosed dual agency is, the services they can expect from the real estate professional, and then a comprehensive explanation of the new exclusive buyer agency agreement.
So that actually kind of brings me up to another quick question. What is agency? Because we keep hearing that, and what to the normal consumer, they have no idea what agency means in our world. So what briefly explain what agency is to them.
I'm going to butcher this because I wasn't expecting this question, but there's this term called old car.
Okay.
All right, and it's obedience, loyalty,
disclosure,
confidentiality,
accounting, and then
accountability.
Yeah,
and then
was reasonable confidence.
Reasonable confidence. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. So that is what agency is who protects me, who works for me. Again, go back to the earlier example. To go to the realtor and say, I'll pay $400, but I'll go up to $425. I need to feel that my confidentiality is probably the biggest aspect of that relationship.
Okay.
Trust is a big part of that relationship. We can spend our whole life building trust and lose it in a second, but by not doing things the right way by the people that put their trust in us.
And that kind of when you're working dual agency, which is as a real estate agent, you're working both sides, buyer and seller. You kind of lose some of those old car fiduciary responsibilities.
If I look at there's one specific one you lose under disclosed dual agency.
And it's loyalty.
It's loyalty because now, confidentiality is still there.
Of course.
Because we can't share anything back and forth without the express written consent of the person. But it's loyalty because technically we're responsible for both. So we can't claim loyalty to any individual. In a perfect world, John, I would love to see New Jersey, and I've been part of the argument for the last 10, 12 years. We need to do what's called designated agency.
Okay.
Most states, the agency relationship goes with the agent, not the broker.
Here in Jersey, it goes with the broker.
Here in New Jersey, it goes with the broker, which means if I've got you working with the buyer and Pete or Chris representing the seller, we're a disclosed dual agent because you're both under Keller Williams Metropolitan. Now think about that with some of our competitors. A company like Coldwell Banker, who's a fantastic company, but they've got 200 offices perhaps in the state.
Yeah.
So statewide, every agent from every office is a disclosed dual agent every time you're showing another Coldwell Banker listing.
Right.
In our world, because we're franchised, independently owned and operated, it only goes with that particular franchise. So in a perfect world, we go to designated agency where there could be two agents under the same broker, one designated by the broker to represent the buyer, one designated by the broker to represent the seller.
Is there a future for that?
I asked it today on the call. Gary Large, who was one of the premier professionals in our industry, one of the great men that passed away a few years ago, he was a big pioneer for getting that passed, and I believe he had it pretty close to the finish line, but with his passing, it kind of went away. I know New Jersey Realtors, I know they're doing an amazing job right now representing the realtor. I know they're talking about legislation to change the designated agency. I know they're talking about legislation to allow both sides participate in the commission under disclosed dual agency situations. So there's some laws that are created that being part of the National Association of Realtors helps us get those laws changed for current times. And that was one thing they said today on the call, which was great. This exclusive buyer agency agreement is a living document. It's something we're going to be updating regularly as the industry continues to evolve and practices change. It's not something that's going to be created, put up on a shelf and say, use this for the next 20 years. I would be surprised to see this document change 3 or 4 times in the first year, because it's very new, and as we experience communicating it and challenges with it, they're there to help us make sure it's the best tool possible to educate and protect the consumer, in this case the buyer and the seller, to make sure everyone knows who's represented by who.
Okay, so I got a couple other questions that I actually didn't prep you for.
It's all good. Let's go with it.
So I know the three of us in this room, Chris included, none of us have a crystal ball.
If I did, I would be in this room. I've never been a coach.
It seems like you do, though. Almost to a point, you kind of do, where you saw this coming. But the market, is it kind of opening up now? We've been talking about the spring market.
No, it's not. So inventory is still extremely low. The number one thing driving our low inventory is rates.
Okay.
is rates. Right now, I believe the number is 80% of America has an interest rate below 4%. I mean, God bless you. That's awesome. I'm 4.25, not bad. I've heard some people as low as 2.8.
Yeah.
Studies show the average consumer will move 2 points.
So if you got a 3, you're okay with a 5.
You're okay with a 5. You got a 4, you'll go into the 6s.
Okay.
Someone with a 3.5 is not going to go to 7.7.
Right.
So we're kind of stalled right now because I had a great neighbor I'm friends with that I talked to recently. He goes, I got 2.85. I'm never moving. How could you?
Yeah.
Because we're not going to see we're not going to see 2.85 again in our lifetime.
But the thing is, I feel like if we see that number, we are on a global crisis like we did with the pandemic. That's what's going to happen if we have that again.
And what people don't realize, the 40-year average of interest rates is about 7.8%.
Say that one more time because I've been screaming at people. That's how important this is.
The 40-year average of interest rate is 7.8%.
Okay.
My first one was 6.6. My parents' first one was in the 12s. We have an agent here's first one was in the 17s.
Oh my God.
The very first time interest rates dipped to a very low level, the very first time we saw this floor that we've never seen before was actually after 9/11. After 9/11, the federal fund dropped their rate down to a level that allowed banks to drop down into the 4s.
Okay.
And that's what spurred a whole lot of economic energy because the federal government knows that home sales are a great driver of the economy. Mm-hmm. So when we had an attack on American soil, they said, we've got to drive home sales, we've got to drive car sales. Those are the two biggest contributors to the American economy. So they dropped rates to a point they never did before in order to get that going, and it worked. From 01 to 04, 05, we saw home values, at least in our market, almost double in those 5 years. Too fast.
Yeah.
Too fast. And many times they overcorrect in the situation. Then from 2008 to 2012, they locked it up and really slowed it down. And then they started opening it up 2012 on. And the same thing happened in 2020. We had a worldwide shutdown and a national shutdown to our economy. If you ever told me we'd have a worldwide pandemic, a national shutdown to our economy, and the stocks would soar, real estate would sell like it's never sold before, and we'd have this huge boom, tells you there was something wrong. We were overinflated.
Yeah.
The economy was overinflated. The stimulus, which I get the government did trillions of dollars stimulating the economy, actually boomed us a little bit more than they should have, which was unnatural. So that caused inflation. Mm-hmm. And because inflation got out of control up in the 8-9 range, they had to increase interest rates on cars and homes in order to slow down the economy.
Okay.
So you're talking about, my crystal ball?
Yeah. As
we start seeing home interest rates come down towards 6, we'll see more inventory open up.
Okay.
The magic number is 5.7.
5.7.
Yeah, folks.
Write that down.
If you wait till 5.7, you kind of miss an opportunity because that's when things will open up a little bit more. That's when we'll start seeing some prices, softening perhaps. But here's the challenge. The price is going to go up between now and then. Mm-hmm. And if you buy a house at 6.5, almost every mortgage partner we work with will give you free financing when it comes down. So I say, buy the house that works for you at the prices they are today, the interest rate they are, because they're going to continue to go up for the next 12 to 14 months.
Okay.
And then even once the interest rates come down, we're still going to see 2 to 3 more years of rising prices. So I'm anticipating at least 4 years ahead of us of rising prices. Before interest rates get to a point where prices start to come down because there's that much more inventory opened up. So there's a second thing that's caused this inventory.
And what is that?
Lack of new construction for the last 14 years.
I was just going to ask you about that. How short are we on houses? Last I checked, it was 2.5?
6.5 million.
6.5 million.
Yeah, if you look at the underbuilding from 2010 to 2020 alone, just those 10 years, we underbuilt in America by 6.5 million homes. So I remember reading an article back in 2020, 2021. It would take the new home builders building at a rate we've never built before in order to have the inventory catch up. And if they did that at a rate we never built before, it would take 7 years to catch up.
Oh, my God.
Here's the problem in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Look at what's being built everywhere. Yeah. Everything being built is luxury apartments. In New Jersey, the home builders have said, first of all, to build and make a profit as single family, it's only $1 million homes. That doesn't attract the most buyers. So they said, why are we going to buy, build, sell, get hit with capital gains and taxes, and then do it again? So they've embraced the buy and hold philosophy. Everything being built, at least 90% of it in Morris County, is luxury apartment rentals. one bedrooms in the mid threes, two bedrooms in the mid fours, pay extra for parking and pets. So a lot of what's being built right now is luxury apartments. So again, there's not going to be a huge influx of new construction on our market anytime in the foreseeable future.
Okay.
We're still going to have tight sales inventory for the foreseeable future. That's why I'm saying locally, we got easily 3 to 5 more years of rising prices. They won't be at the rate that they were from 2000 to 2003. Prices soared in New Jersey about 48%.
Okay.
We've come back. We're averaging that 4 to 6% range, which is normal. So I think we've got another couple of years of 4 to 6% before we see it plateau, and maybe even longer before we see prices dip. So if you're waiting for prices to dip, interest rates will come down a lot faster than prices will dip.
Okay.
So buy the home you want today at the price you can get it for. You can always refinance the home.
And that's the thing. We've done a lot of open houses here in the Crawford Lorenzo home selling team. I was just with Chris, what was it? Less than a month ago now, we were in Bergen County. And in one day, we had almost 50 groups of people come in. And you only get to pick one, which means 40-something other groups of people didn't get that home, which means they're still looking for homes, right? So you got to get in there when you can, as Michael just said. Get the price that you can, and then worry about the rate afterwards. So Michael, how does this? I feel like we kind of got off track a little bit, but
I do that.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. You're entertaining.
I try. I just had to pull up another stat. I talked generally before that 80% of people with a home are under 4%.
Right.
I found this stat online the other day. This is Q4 numbers from the National Mortgage Bankers Association.
So Q4 2023.
2023, yep. They actually broke it down even more. 22.2% of mortgage homes have a rate of less than 3%. 35.9% are between 3 and 4.
Okay.
18.9% are 4 and 5. 9.6% of all mortgages are 5 to 6, and 13.4% are less than or equal to 6%. So what this is telling us is, again, as rates come down into this, right now in the 7s, we have 10% of the people will sell their home and buy because it's a good deal. When they come down into the 6s, you're going to have another 20% of the world open up. If it comes in the 5s, it opens up another 36% of the world. So all of this is what's going to drive that inventory and the economic impact.
Chris, we got all that, right? Okay, good.
Yeah, notes. I'll send you this so you have a copy. You can post it to the comments. If you like.
Absolutely. Would love to let everyone see those numbers, because that's huge. How is this now going to affect buyers in the future with this lawsuit and the verdict from it?
It's interesting. Jeffrey Otto, one of the premier professional appraisers in our industry in New Jersey, he does this great auto workshop every year. And it's a spring market workshop. Okay. And realtors, if you're not spending $100 to go to this, you should not be a realtor, because it's the best money you can invest to educate yourself. And what Jeff Otto said this year, what was your question again?
How is this going to affect buyers?
What he had said is the average buyer is going to be affected by about 28%.
Okay.
So right now, with interest rates where they are and how much prices have changed over the last 3 years, the average buyer is going to be about 20 to 30%. So that's really the trade-up buyer. So everyone's buying power is 30% lower because interest rates are double what they were a year and a half ago.
So wait, you're telling me that mainstream media is wrong that says our commission, because of what just happened, is going to drop home prices by 30%?
Anyone that doesn't realize that supply and demand are the two biggest drivers of prices are crazy.
Yeah.
Commissions have nothing to do with it. Actually, I think what's going to happen, nothing's going to happen with commissions. Actually, I think the average buyer, it's going to cost them more to buy a house, because good quality buyer's agents have always, for the last 20 years, a good quality buyer's agent is going to charge a premium for their service because they're better negotiating than the average buyer's agent. So I think what's going to happen is this is going to really hurt first-time home buyers. Okay. Because, as I said, it hurts buying power by 30%. But trade-up buyers, they made 48% on their home over the last few years.
And still got 18 to play with.
And they have money to put into that next home from their home sale. That first-time home buyer does not.
Okay.
So if you look at Otto's report, the first-time home buyer, their buying power is affected by more like 65%. So we're creating a world where it's less affordable for a first-time home buyer to buy a home, and they potentially have to bring more money to closing.
You're not helping my millennial generation right now, Michael.
Well, all the more reason why they need a really good buyer's agent and should call your team and sign your team up, because you know how to navigate. You've got mortgage relationships that are creative with different things like a 2-1 buy down and multi-year buy down. You've got ways to negotiate the commission into the deal. But here, before we get into worrying about who's paying the commission, I believe sellers will still pay the cooperating broker commission moving forward.
Why is that?
Historically, sellers always had a choice about whether they hired a realtor and how much commission they paid. 10% of all home sales in America are for sale by owners. If you call every for sale by owner, they still offer out compensation to buyers brokers. So when someone's looking to save money on selling their home, they look to save money on the listing side of the commission. They've always seen the value of having a buyer's agent involved in the mix, because it gives them distance from the consumer.
Okay. To
have another professional who's licensed, trained, background checked, educated, negotiate on the buyer's behalf. So again, even when you look at today, the 10% of home sellers that want to save money, they see the benefit of buying a buyer's agent. It's the listing agents that haven't showed the value enough for them to list with a listing agent.
I know we can go on forever with this, and it's not done because this thing is still going to appeals. Is that correct?
No, so appeals are done.
Okay,
so settling's happening, but the settlements have not been approved by the DOJ.
Okay.
So to give you an idea, Anywhere and Remax settled back in October. Their settlements still haven't been approved.
Okay.
Keller Williams settled about a month and a half ago. NAR settled a few weeks ago. So the DOJ is going through their process of examining all of these and approving the settlement offers. So everyone's saying, hoping it settles by July. It probably won't settle by July. I will tell you, at Metropolitan Town Square, we're still operating like we're in the new world already. Okay. We're not waiting until July. We're not waiting. July is not coming. We'll push it to September.
There's that crystal ball I was talking about.
November. I said back in October, this is changing. Buyers agencies are going to be required. We started training them in October, made them mandatory in January. Effective today, we're using the new exclusive buyer agency representation. I'm not waiting for July to use that. It's available today. We're using it today. We had a training room of 40 people today, already introduced them to the new form. So we just keep moving forward and making sure we're in the best position we can to represent our buyers at a high level. Because if you're going to a real estate professional who can't explain what's going on in the NAR, doesn't know the new form, can't give you quality buyer's representation consultation and show their value, then that should be your sign right there. You're talking to the wrong person. It shouldn't be a friend. It shouldn't be a neighbor. It shouldn't be someone who signed your call. It's someone that you should meet with, give you a quality consultation, understand your needs, and then show you clearly what their value is as your representative. And if they can do that, that's the person you hire. And it doesn't matter what you pay them, because any dollar you pay them is an investment, because they're going to save you pain, heartache, and get you the best price you can, the best possible time.
So I've asked this question a couple times of Pete and Chris, Peter Lorenzo and Chris Baggio, leadership here on Crawford Lorenzo home selling team. But I'm going to ask you the same question. What is a quality buyer agent?
A buyer agent that can show you clearly what their value is.
Okay.
What are the 5 key areas of buyer service that's important to you? What's their negotiating skill? If you want to hire the least expensive agent, whether you're hiring them to be a listing or a buyer's agent, I would caution you. Because if they can't negotiate their own income for you, how could they possibly negotiate all the complex features of the home selling process, the home buying process?
So you get what you pay for.
You get what you pay for. Have you ever bought the cheapest TV or the cheapest golf clubs or the cheapest car? There's a reason they're priced low. So a buyer consultation, and hey, we can actually come on for one of these things and go through a 30-minute buyer consultation and show the buyers what that looks like. So that way they can understand what kind of communication the realtor is going to give them.
We might do that at one point on here to show you guys what's supposed to look like.
Here's what I would say. Let the likes determine it. If you like the video, make a comment. The more likes and comments we got, the more likely we will be to do that buyer consultation live right here on YouTube.
What he said, what the boss said. I like that idea. Michael, again, we kind of changed the seminar to suit your schedule. You are a very busy man. It is so tough to get a hold of you.
No, it's all good.
So thank you for doing this. And we kind of pivoted because we were actually supposed to have an attorney on here, but I felt this was so important that I had to get you on.
And let me comment on that real quick. At the end of the buyer representation, the buyer consultation, and going through the buyer representation agreement. The very last line of that buyer representation agreement says, if you're not comfortable or fully understand everything in this document, please consult legal counsel.
Okay.
So at Metropolitan and Town Square, we are going to be educating the buyer that we really want you to engage with an attorney and the mortgage person right now as part of the buyer consultation. We have some agents that are going to bring the attorney and a mortgage person into the buyer consultation, because I want the attorney to be able to answer all your questions on this buyer representation agreement as you're signing it. I want them to educate you throughout the process on waiving appraisals, waiving additions. So the days of talking to your mortgage person as you're getting ready to write the offer, or talking to the attorney after you write the offer, those days are over. If you're not solidifying your relationship with the mortgage person and the attorney as you're starting the process, you're operating the old way.
Okay.
Do me a favor, operate the new way. Your realtor can make recommendations on mortgage and attorney, give them a couple great ones. Our best attorneys are the best educating attorneys, where they educate you on what your risks are on all terms of the negotiation facet. So don't just waive an appraisal or waive home inspections until you have a conversation with an attorney. Then make sure you know exactly what risks you're making by doing so.
That is phenomenal advice. Keller Williams Metropolitan Broker, Michael Brand, he's the broker over at our sister office, Keller Williams Town Square, former regional director of the tri-state area. And you're right next to the second most influential man in real estate, Gary Keller.
Gary Keller is probably one of the most amazing men I've ever met. Brilliant, always ahead of his time. And I've had a chance to be on one-on-one phone calls, conversations, meetings with Gary. And you know what? There's this term we've used for years: in Gary we trust. I've got no concern on what's going on with the industry, because Gary does a great job of prepping us for it, which I take it as my job to make sure I'm prepping you guys for it. So it's a lot easier to navigate these crazy times when you've got a leader. I'm talking about Gary here, letting you know what you need to be doing to navigate through it.
Michael Brand, Keller Williams Metropolitan Broker, Keller Williams Town Square Broker. He is phenomenal. So much information. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And of course, as always, looking ahead, get pre-approved. Michael was just talking about mortgages. We're going to talk to a mortgage lender later on, and then in May. Then we've got June coming up, July, August, September, and of course, rounding out this 7-episode series for the buyer series in October. Michael, I believe you are also going to be joining us later on this month for the seller version of this seminar, because it is 2 separate discussions that we have to have. So make sure that you're going to be joining us for that as well, and cannot wait for that. Also, as we mentioned, how do you get in touch with the Crawford Lorenzo home selling team, right? It's really, really simple. Our office number here at Keller Williams Metropolitan, 973-539-1120.
But please always use the team phone. That way they get directly to you. It'll save our front desk a lot of time passing calls along.
So then, Michael, why don't you read off what the team number is?
I would suggest, if you want to get in touch with the Crawford Lorenzo team, you call 973-615-1567. My eyesight's going. Again, that's 615-1567. You'll be in touch directly with an agent immediately that can answer all your questions and guide you in the right direction.
And of course, our website, CrawfordLorenzoHomeSellingTeam.com. And thank you guys so much. And as Michael just said not too long ago, like, comment, subscribe. We're on our Facebook page, Crawford Lorenzo Home Selling Team, Instagram, Crawford Lorenzo Team NJ, and of course, right here on YouTube, Crawford Lorenzo Team. So make sure that you tune in. Make sure you check us out. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you guys so much for doing this. Thank you guys so much for coming in. Michael, really, really appreciate it.
And I know Gordon's always said, and Pete says, and Chris say, let our years of experience work for you.
Yeah.
So let's make sure we're using all the years we have of experience to help you navigate through these times in real estate.
So